unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live, Boxingego unpack. Yeah. We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live.
The fighters that Crawford fought were handicapped. You know what I'm saying? Look, Errol Spence just announced about his cardiac, his eye and stuff. Jose Benavidez, when he fought him, he had a shot leg. When he and then who's the other fighter that he faced that they try to make it a big thing and he was injured too? Kell Brook with his eye. So every fighter that Crawford has faced throughout the 147 division, whether it looks good on paper, they've been injured.
Wow. Teofimo Lopez goes in on Terence Bud Crawford and his resume. He's questioning in a brand new interview who has Terence Crawford really fought in a lot of those situations, and he named them. He said guys like Errol Spence. I made a video about it, which is why you guys got to subscribe to the channel for the latest and greatest in boxing. This is your one-stop shop. Errol Spence came out yesterday and he had a patch over his eye, taped gauze over his eye, and he revealed to the public that he had suffered yet another eye surgery. We know Errol Spence was supposed to fight Manny Pacquiao from General Santos, Philippines. I believe. The fight fell apart. Errol Spence was forced to pull out because he had a detached retina. And it's likely this was caused by his horrific car accident, which nearly claimed his life. So with that being said, the Pacquiao fight went out the window and went to Ugas. He did come back and fight the winner, which was Cuban boxer Yordenis Ugas. And after that, he took about a year off negotiating with Crawford. The first negotiations didn't go the greatest, so he had to come back to the negotiating table. And as a result, they were able to get it done the second time. He fought Terence Crawford. It was a bad night. It didn't really go Terence Crawford couldn't miss, with his shots, and it didn't go Errol Spence's way. And Errol Spence took his first pro loss. Similar to when he lost in the Olympics, this was a big fight, undisputed. Terence Crawford became 2x undisputed. Fast forward to the future, now you have Teofimo Lopez, who's questioning everything that Terence Crawford has really done to this point. He's like, yo, everybody that Terence Crawford has faced has had some type of ailment. You got Errol Spence. He just said he had cataracts. I think Teo in the interview said cardiac, which is your heart. That was kind of funny. But he meant the cataracts, which I just went over. He said, you look at Jose Benavidez, he got shot in the leg and Crawford fought him. And I was at that fight. And then he said, even Kell Brook. He said, you look at Kell Brook. So basically, realistically, when he fought him, he had 2 damaged eyes from the head. No, guys, hey, Max, the Triple G fight. And then the fight with Errol Spence. He had one eye was messed up by Triple G and the other was messed up by the southpaw Errol Spence. So Teofimo Lopez, he was cooking. Like, when I'm saying cooking, he wasn't lying when he said what he said. And that's the reality of it. I know some people will be mad, oh, you're hating on Crawford. I didn't say it. Teo's the one that outlined it and put it all in perspective like he did. So at the end of the day, I deal with truth in reality, and Crawford did face guys with these said ailments going on. If you guys deal with the truth, then you got to admit what he's saying is he's being truthful, because Terence Crawford did fight fighters with these said things. He beat him. Nobody's denying that. But Jose Benavidez, that was one of the earlier ones. And Terence Crawford just signed a re-up or a extension with Top Rank, fought Jose Benavidez in Omaha. And Jose Benavidez, within the past year or two, he was shot in the leg. So as a result, he had to deal with that. And if you remember that particular fight, that was one of Crawford's toughest fights at 147 pounds, and he didn't get the stoppage until the 12th and final round. And I do believe that Jose Benavidez, he showed you he's tough because he just fought against Jermall Charlo at a higher weight. He fought against Danny Garcia at a higher weight, and none of the fighters, Jermall or Danny, were able to stop him, and they have good power at a higher weight class. So he's definitely durable. But you look at the particular fight with Terence Crawford, and in that fight, and again, I was there ringside for that particular fight, you look at it, Jose Benavidez was being effective, and he was giving Crawford some issue until he wasn't, which was about the halfway mark. The halfway mark came, and it kind of flattened out for Jose Benavidez, and then Terence Crawford started to get better reads on him when that happened. That's what I seen, and I was there, and I was live for that particular fight. It is what it is. So you can't say Teofimo is lying there. Errol Spence, I went over that at the beginning of this video. In the Errol Spence fight, Errol Spence, he's claiming, whether you believe him, if you don't believe him, that's on you. Me personally, I do believe Errol Spence because he's always shown himself to be really a stand-up guy. And right or wrong, he's done the things that he said he intended to do in the boxing game. Errol Spence says he's going to clean up his side of the street, collect all the belts, and then after he collects all the belts, he's going after Terence Crawford. This is exactly what Errol Spence did. He cleaned up his side of the street, meaning he made all of the pertinent PBC fights that he could, minus Keith Thurman. But I can't really hold the Keith Thurman fight against Errol Spence because that really wasn't his fault. He had been pressing Keith Thurman's line. He had been getting at Keith Thurman. And at the end of the day, it was Keith Thurman at the time who was kind of big-headed. He was a bit further along in his career. So Keith Thurman didn't really want to fight Errol Spence. And he was like, oh, it's my get-back year. And, you know, Errol needs to become a champion. And he had this whole obstacle course. And he was kind of like telling Errol Spence what he needed to do in order to earn a shot with him. But Errol Spence, you know, he's been a man of his word throughout his career. So I'm not going to lie and act like he hasn't been that. And we know Errol Spence, he's just been a straight shooter his whole entire career. So I will give Errol Spence the benefit of the doubt in terms of he's saying something is wrong with him. I do believe that is the case. You know, and I think it's kind of OD to get dressed up with gauze and get tape over your eye and look like you're in the hospital. That's just a lot of acting to do when you really didn't need to. Because if you think about it, Errol Spence, it's been like 6 months since the fight even happened. So why would he even have to do any of that type of stuff if it weren't true? Like, just really think about this. Would he go through these great lengths of making it look like he's at the hospital? I mean, it's just, it's foolish to believe that, I believe. I think it's truly foolish to just assume that Errol Spence is lying and he's not telling the truth. He's not giving me any reason to suspect that from him. So I do think that cataract thing, there's truth to it. Plus, we know he was in a heinous car wreck. And at the end of the day, that likely had something to do with it. Him being in that car wreck and hitting like asphalt, you know, definitely probably had an impact on him as a fighter. So I definitely believe Errol Spence when it comes to that. So far, Teo is 2 for 2. He said that you had both Jose Benavidez and Errol Spence, and something was wrong with them before the fight. You can't really deny that, right? The cataract, and unless, let me know in the comment section if you feel that Errol Spence somehow made up the whole cataract story and he wasn't being truthful. But to me, I think that's just so extreme to do, and I don't understand. Well, like, what would be the gain for Errol Spence, I guess, is a better question. What would be the gain? He waited all this time. He waited to a fresh year to announce this. It's just what he's going through. And then finally, Kell Brook. And that's the same thing. There's Kell Brook. These are the realities. And I know Terence Crawford, he's upset that people pick at his resume, but this is your career. This is who you fought. This is when you fought them. And these are the realities of your career. So it's not really anything to get mad at. Like I always say, you can dislike, but you can't disprove. It's easy to dislike something, like, oh, I don't like the sound of that. But there's a lot of things that people, like someone could tell you about yourself, right? And say, oh, ego's this and that. I might not like the sound of it, but the truth hurts, and the truth is the truth. So if the shoe fits, then it is what it is. And the reality is, this is why Crawford's resume has been under a microscope and people go over it with a fine-tooth comb, because at the end of the day, he has fought people with certain ailments and certain handicaps in the fight. It's not saying he's not a good fighter. He's clearly that, because even if Errol Spence was 100%, maybe he beats him, maybe he beats him. Look at this picture, is vicious. So maybe he still beats him regardless, but we'll never know unless we get 100% healthy Errol Spence and they actually do the rematch. That's the way to, I guess, resolve this. But, it looks like Crawford has his number. As far as Teofimo talking trash, I definitely can't wait to see, because as of me recording the video, I'll put the link in the description, but I haven't seen, Crawford blocked me, so I can't really see his stuff anyway, but you guys will let me know if Terence Crawford responds to it. I'm sure I'll see it around. If he responds to the Teofimo, like, hey, you're fighting handicapped fighters. From what we've seen, Crawford is pretty hot-headed, and he doesn't like people who doubt him. He doesn't like people who challenge his resume and these types of things. So next thing you know, he said he would fight Tank Davis, who is even smaller than Teofimo Lopez. So who knows? The next order of business is when Crawford hears about this, he might try to do that and offer a fight, because he's a competitive guy. So, that's exactly what I can picture Crawford doing, and saying like, hey, if I fought all handicapped people, then you fight me. That definitely sounds like a Crawford move, if you will, of offering to fight Teofimo Lopez for his trouble. Like, all right, you got this and that to say, you move up and wait and fight me at 147. I never really thought I'd be answering questions about Teofimo Lopez and Terence Crawford, because they were always in different points of their career in different weight classes. So I never really looked at both guys as possibly being able to fight each other. But again, knowing Crawford, his temperament, and the fact that they're in the same industry, Teofimo's a pretty big 140 pounder, even though he just moved up not too long ago. I wouldn't put it past boxing to maybe advocate for this fight. I know the fans are going to say that. They're going to be like, oh, you got all this to say about Crawford. I don't see, the thing is, with these fighters is crazy. They take punches in the face for a living, but they can't take criticism, right? Like, I get it. Nobody truly wants somebody to, ultimately be bagging on their resume and things like that. But the truth is the truth. If these were the fights that you got and it was under these certain conditions, or fighters came into the fight with certain handicaps, it is what it is. What are you to do? No one's saying Crawford can't fight. I've never heard anyone say that. No one said that Crawford's a bad fighter or he's not talented. So at the end of the day, when you're at the top of your game, you're in the spotlight, the limelight. People are going to talk and people are going to have their critiques. I know people are going to be like, oh, shut the heck up, Teo, and you don't know Teo. But what he said is, is really not invalid. So let me know what you guys think. Drop your thoughts in the comment section. Best in the business. Check out some of my other content. You dig?